Clint Eastwood once revealed the 7 women he believed defined true Hollywood beauty long before he became the legendary director audiences know today. Before the Oscars, before the towering reputation, Eastwood was simply a sharp-eyed observer of the screen, someone who could spot a presence that felt larger than life. He wasn't impressed with the polished image factory Hollywood often pushed. What caught his attention was the kind of beauty that instantly changes the mood of a room and makes people stop mid-sentence just to look. Across rare interviews during his long career, Eastwood opened up about the women who left him completely speechless. According to him, their beauty went far beyond perfect features or youthful charm. What made them unforgettable was something deeper and harder to explain. A powerful presence that separates ordinary starlets from the kind of legends people remember decades later. Today, we're diving into Eastwood's personal list of the most stunning women to ever command the silver screen and the reasons each one earned a place in his exclusive Hollywood Hall of Fame. Number 7 on his list was Raquel Welch. Eastwood never actually worked with her, but that didn't matter at all. He once explained that when Welch walked into a room, she carried herself like she didn't need to say a single word, and nobody dared question it. Her confidence, her energy, and her unforgettable look made her feel like a full-blown Hollywood storm in high heels. Born Jo Raquel Tejada in Chicago in 1940, Raquel wasn't just another attractive face trying to stand out in the crowded world of movie stars. She arrived with a bold presence that demanded attention the moment she appeared on screen. Raquel Welch wasn't just another star rising in the 1960s. She arrived like a storm and completely changed the meaning of a Hollywood sex symbol. During that era, many actresses who gained that title were blonde and often portrayed as soft and approachable. But according to Clint Eastwood, Raquel was something very different. In a 1984 interview, he explained that Welch carried an energy that felt untouchable, almost dangerous, the kind of presence that made people step back and pay attention. That powerful image exploded into public view with the 1966 film 1 Million Years BC. The prehistoric fantasy showed Raquel wearing the now legendary deerskin bikini, a look that ended up on posters across the world and instantly turned her into a global sensation. For many viewers, it became one of the most recognizable images in movie history. But Eastwood always insisted he saw more than the surface. As he once explained, what impressed me about Raquel wasn't the obvious, it was how she carried herself like royalty, who could also break your jaw if necessary. Throughout the 1970s, their paths crossed at several Hollywood events, and people nearby often noticed something unusual. Eastwood, usually calm and confident, would grow noticeably quiet whenever she entered the room. Years later, he reflected on that feeling, saying, "She had a quality I've rarely seen, complete self-possession." Welch never wanted to be boxed into a single image either. She pushed against the typical expectations of the time, taking bold roles in films like Myra Breckinridge and the roller derby drama Kansas City Bomber. Her determination paid off when she won a Golden Globe for The Three Musketeers, proving her talent stretched far beyond appearance. Still, what stayed in Eastwood's memory most was the way she carried herself. As he once observed, some beautiful women seemed to apologize for it. Raquel wore hers like armor. There was something almost warrior-like in the way she owned her presence, as if beauty for her wasn't simply a gift, it was a shield she controlled completely. When Clint Eastwood was asked what truly separated Raquel Welch from the other glamorous stars of her era, his answer was blunt and unforgettable. He explained that many beautiful women seemed eager to be liked, always trying to win approval from the room. But Raquel carried herself in a completely different way. As he once put it, most beautiful women want you to like them. Raquel never seemed to care one way or the other, and to Eastwood, that kind of confidence was real power. As the decades moved forward, that confidence only proved stronger. By the 1980s, many famous symbols of beauty from earlier years had slowly faded from the spotlight. Raquel, however, kept pushing forward. She built successful businesses, continued acting, and held on to her life-larger-than-life reputation, even as Hollywood changed around her. Eastwood later reflected on this in 2000 with a simple thought that stuck with many people. That's the test of true beauty. Does it hold up when youth is gone? In Raquel's case, his answer never changed. For him, the answer was always yes. Even though they never appeared together in a film, Eastwood admitted he kept a quiet list in his mind of actresses he wished he had worked with during his career. Raquel Welch was almost always near the top of that list. As he explained, some people just don't need the right lighting or the right camera angle. They're magnetic without trying. That was Raquel always.
But even Welch's powerful presence couldn't overshadow the quiet elegance of the next woman on Eastwood's list, someone who changed the idea of grace for an entire generation. Number 6 was Audrey Hepburn. On paper, she didn't seem like the type Eastwood would normally admire, yet she made the list without question. He once described her as the definition of class with a face made for silence. Her beauty came from calm confidence, grace, and a timeless femininity that didn't demand attention, yet somehow captured every eye in the room. At the time, Clint Eastwood was carving out his image as Hollywood's quiet, tough guy. Audrey Hepburn represented something completely different. His career was built on rugged masculinity, sharp stares, and few words. Hepburn, on the other hand, carried delicate elegance, European charm, and a graceful presence that felt almost untouchable. Yet, despite those differences, Eastwood admitted he couldn't stop watching her on screen. In a 1976 interview, he reflected on the moment he first noticed her while still figuring out who he wanted to be in this business. He said, "I remember seeing Roman Holiday when I was still figuring out who I wanted to be in this business. I was struck by how she didn't seem to be trying. Everyone else was acting. She just was." Born in Belgium in 1929, Hepburn endured the difficult years of the Nazi occupation in the Netherlands before later pursuing ballet and eventually acting. That early struggle shaped the calm strength she carried throughout her life. Her breakthrough performance in Roman Holiday in 1953 earned her an Academy Award and introduced audiences to a completely new style of Hollywood beauty. She wasn't loud or flashy. Instead, she appeared intelligent, graceful, and quietly captivating, which made her stand out instantly from the glamorous icons dominating the era. Eastwood often pointed out how unusual she seemed compared to the Hollywood standards of the time. As he explained, she was the opposite of what Hollywood thought a woman should be: too thin, too European, too elegant, but you couldn't take your eyes off her. Their paths crossed only a couple of times during their careers. One meeting happened at a studio event in 1962, and another took place years later during an Academy Award ceremony. Eastwood, who normally carried himself with total confidence, admitted something surprising about those moments. Being around Hepburn made him unexpectedly nervous. He later described the feeling by saying there was something almost otherworldly about her, like she was made of finer materials than the rest of us. What impressed him most was the unusual balance she carried. Hepburn had the rare ability to show strength through gentleness, something that fascinated an actor famous for playing unbreakable characters. As Eastwood observed, most actors try to seem stronger than they are. Eastwood often pointed out that Audrey Hepburn had a rare kind of confidence, the kind that allowed her to appear vulnerable without ever seeming weak. In his eyes, that quiet openness required far more strength than the loud bravado many actors relied on. While others tried to look powerful, Hepburn simply allowed her emotions to show, and that honesty made her performances unforgettable. Her roles in classics like Breakfast at Tiffany's, My Fair Lady, and Wait Until Dark proved she had far more depth than many people expected from a glamorous Hollywood star. Eastwood respected that range deeply. Yet, out of all her performances, one stood above the rest in his memory. He often said her most striking work appeared in The Nun Story. According to Eastwood, that film removed every layer of Hollywood sparkle. As he explained, that film stripped away everything external. No glamorous costumes or famous jewelry, just a face expressing things most actors couldn't convey with 1,000 words. In that quiet performance, he believed audiences could truly see the power of her talent. Later in life, Hepburn gradually stepped away from the spotlight to dedicate herself to humanitarian work with UNICEF.
Instead of chasing more fame, she focused on helping children and communities around the world. That decision only deepened Eastwood's respect for her character. After her passing in 1993, he reflected on her legacy with a powerful thought. He said, "True beauty reveals itself in what you do when the cameras stop rolling." By that measure, he believed Hepburn might have been the most beautiful person Hollywood had ever produced. What made her stand apart, in his view, was her ability to project inner richness instead of relying on surface charm. As he once explained, most beautiful women make you think about them. Audrey made you think about yourself, who you could be, how you could behave with more grace. That influence stayed with him for decades. Whenever Eastwood was asked which actresses modern Hollywood should learn from, Audrey Hepburn was always the first name he mentioned. In 2008, Clint Eastwood reflected on what made Audrey Hepburn so unforgettable, and his words revealed just how deeply he respected her approach to fame and beauty. He explained that she understood something many modern stars often forget. Mystery carries far more power than constant exposure. As he put it, what you choose not to reveal can be just as important as what you show to the world. But while Hepburn represented quiet elegance and graceful restraint, the next woman on Eastwood's list carried an entirely different kind of energy. Her presence was bold, intense, and impossible to ignore. She didn't whisper her way into a room the way Hepburn did. She arrived like a wave of unstoppable confidence. Number 5 on his list was Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren stood as the complete opposite of delicate Hollywood charm. Powerful, fearless, and openly sensual, she embodied a different form of beauty that commanded attention everywhere she went. Eastwood once described her in a simple but unforgettable way, saying she was dangerous in the best possible way. Her beauty wasn't fragile or soft, it was bold and dominant. Born Sofia Villani Ciccolone in Rome in 1934, Loren rose from the difficult conditions of war-torn Italy to become one of the most recognized women in global cinema. Her rise wasn't built on the typical Hollywood image of youthful innocence. Instead, she carried a confident maturity that set her apart from nearly every other star of the era. Eastwood once pointed out how different she looked compared to the American beauty standards of the 1950s and 1960s. As he explained in 1971, American beauty in the 50s and 60s was about looking like a girl. Sophia was all woman. There was nothing timid or girlish about her presence. Eastwood first crossed paths with Loren at the 1965 Cannes Film Festival. Their meeting was brief, but the impression she left stayed with him for years. Later, he described the moment with a vivid memory. He said, "Some people fill a room gradually. Sophia kicked the door down, not with effort, but with a kind of confident sensuality that made everyone else seem like they were half asleep." What impressed Clint Eastwood most about Sophia Loren wasn't just her famous looks, it was the sharp intelligence and playful humor behind them. As he once said, beauty alone isn't enough to keep someone interesting for long. As he explained, beauty without brains is boring after 5 minutes. What made Loren different in his eyes was the way her eyes revealed a mind that was always active, always observing, always thinking several moves ahead. Her rise to international fame came through her powerful collaborations with director Vittorio De Sica. Their partnership led to her unforgettable performance in Two Women in 1960, a role that earned her an Oscar award and made history as the first Oscar given for a foreign language performance. That moment changed Hollywood's view of international actors forever. For Eastwood, that performance revealed what made Loren truly remarkable. He admired her willingness to drop the glamorous image when a role demanded something raw and emotional. As he explained, the willingness to be ugly when the role demanded it. She showed anger, desperation, and powerful emotion without hesitation, something many glamorous stars avoided because it didn't always look flattering on screen. Eastwood also noticed something else that made Loren stand apart from other Hollywood symbols of beauty. Many stars projected a sense of needing approval, as if asking the audience to confirm their attractiveness. Loren carried the exact opposite energy. She didn't seem to ask for validation at all. As Eastwood once put it, most beautiful women seem to be asking, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" But Sophia already knew the answer. When they crossed paths again at a Hollywood event in the late 1970s, Eastwood admitted the feeling hadn't changed much. Her presence was still just as powerful as before. In fact, he believed it only grew stronger with time. As he later said, some women become less imposing as they age. Sophia only became more so. Her beauty matured with confidence, gaining depth and character with every passing year.
One thing that truly impressed Clint Eastwood about Sophia Loren was her complete refusal to reshape herself just to fit Hollywood's expectations. At a time when many international stars were pressured to soften their accents or change their image, Loren held firmly to who she was. She proudly kept her Italian identity, her voice, and her deep connection to European cinema, even as she became a massive success with American audiences. Eastwood admired that confidence deeply. As he once explained, she didn't come to Hollywood to be remade in its image. She came to remake Hollywood's image of what a beautiful woman could be. Instead of blending into the system, Loren shifted the standard itself, showing that strength, maturity, and cultural pride could be just as captivating as the polished Hollywood formula. When people asked Eastwood what truly separated Loren from other famous beauties he had encountered, he often pointed to her comfort with her own power. According to him, many women in Hollywood were subtly taught to make men feel stronger, but Loren carried herself in the exact opposite way. As he once put it, most beautiful women are taught to make men feel strong. Sophia made you feel like you needed to prove you were strong enough for her. That energy created a completely different kind of attraction, the type that doesn't fade with trends or time. But while Loren represented bold confidence and commanding presence, the next woman on Eastwood's list captivated him in a far more mysterious way. Her beauty wasn't loud or dominant. Instead, it carried a quiet, haunting quality that lingered in the mind long after she left the room. Number 4 was Jean Seberg. Seberg had a presence that felt almost otherworldly. American by birth but deeply connected to French cinema, she carried a calm, ethereal charm that stood apart from typical Hollywood glamour. Eastwood first met her early in his career, and the impression stuck with him immediately. Years later, he described that moment in a way that revealed just how unusual she seemed to him. As he said, "She looked like a ghost, and I couldn't stop watching her." Some famous beauties make an entrance that instantly demands attention. Others appear quietly, almost unnoticed at first, yet somehow stay in your mind long after they're gone. Jean Seberg belonged completely to that second group. Jean Seberg was born in Iowa in 1938, and her rise to fame began in a way that felt almost like a movie story itself. Director Otto Preminger selected her from nearly 18,000 hopefuls to play Joan of Arc in the 1957 film Saint Joan. The movie didn't achieve major commercial success, but it opened the door to something far bigger for Seberg. It launched a career that would connect Hollywood with the rising wave of bold, experimental French cinema. Clint Eastwood first crossed paths with Seberg in 1968 during a small industry gathering in Paris. At that time, Eastwood was still widely known for his television role in Rawhide and his growing reputation from Sergio Leone's Western films. Seberg, meanwhile, had already become a major symbol of the French New Wave thanks to her unforgettable role in Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. Their worlds were different, yet the meeting clearly stayed with Eastwood for years. Later, he described the moment with striking detail. As he recalled, she was unlike anyone I'd ever met in Hollywood. According to him, Seberg carried an almost unreal presence that immediately caught his attention. He explained it by saying there was something almost translucent about her, like you could see right through to something essential. What truly fascinated Eastwood wasn't traditional glamour. Instead, it was something much harder to define. Seberg seemed to carry a quiet mystery that made people watch her more closely. As he once said, Jean had this quality that made you feel like she might just disappear if you looked away. It wasn't fragility exactly, but rather a feeling that she existed slightly outside the normal world. Her famous pixie haircut, first seen in Breathless, quickly became one of the most copied looks in film history. Yet Eastwood believed the hairstyle was only a small part of what made it so compelling. The real magnetism came from her expression and the emotion behind her eyes.
As he later explained, the haircut became famous, but it was what was happening behind her eyes that you couldn't look away from. He noticed a rare mix of intelligence and quiet sadness in her gaze, a combination that gave her presence extraordinary depth on camera. Their conversation that evening in Paris didn't last long, but it clearly left an impression that Eastwood never forgot. That evening in Paris, Jean Seberg spoke openly about her work with Jean-Luc Godard, her deep love for France, and the complicated emotions she felt towards America at that time. Eastwood, still early in his acting career and quietly observing the industry around him, mostly listened as she talked. The conversation stayed with him for years because he sensed something unusual about her presence. Later, he reflected on that moment with a revealing thought. As he explained, sometimes you meet someone and immediately know they're carrying something heavy. According to Eastwood, Seberg carried exactly that feeling. He described it simply as beauty with a certain weight behind it, something deeper than the surface charm most stars relied on.
What Eastwood could not have known during that brief meeting was the intense pressure Seberg was dealing with privately. Her public support for civil rights causes had placed her under heavy government surveillance during that era. According to historical records, authorities monitored her activities and spread damaging rumors that deeply affected her reputation and personal life. Years later, when more details became widely discussed, Eastwood said it helped him understand the mysterious sadness he had noticed in her expression that night. In a rare interview during the 1990s, he reflected on the situation, saying the pressure she faced must have been overwhelming. Yet, despite that weight, she continued working and creating powerful performances. For Eastwood, Seberg's beauty could never be separated from that emotional depth. Her vulnerability and quiet strength gave her presence a haunting quality that audiences could feel even when she said very little. As he said decades later, some faces just stick with you. He admitted he could still picture her exactly as she appeared that night in Paris. In his mind, that kind of beauty never truly fades because it was never about youth to begin with. While Seberg represented a fragile, almost dreamlike presence, the next woman on Eastwood's list carried something completely different. Her beauty combined classical elegance with a powerful inner strength that earned his admiration for the rest of his life. Number 3 on Clint Eastwood's list was Ingrid Bergman, a woman many considered true Hollywood royalty and someone he openly admitted had been one of his lifelong screen crushes. To Eastwood, Bergman represented a kind of beauty that didn't rely on tricks or perfect conditions. As he once said, she was the rare actress who looked the same in every kind of lighting and never needed anyone to adjust things just to make her shine. What impressed him most was the quiet strength behind her presence. In a city built on illusion and carefully controlled images, Bergman seemed to stand for something completely different. Her beauty felt natural, honest, and unfiltered, something that audiences immediately trusted. Born in Stockholm in 1915, Bergman brought a refined European elegance to Hollywood that helped reshape American cinema during the 1940s. Her performances in unforgettable classics like Casablanca, Notorious, and Spellbound made it clear she was far more than a beautiful face. She was widely recognized as one of the most talented actresses of her generation. Eastwood never had the opportunity to work with Bergman on a film, but he did meet her in 1978 at a Directors Guild event. It was only 2 years before she passed away after a long illness, yet the impression she left on him was powerful enough to last for decades. Later, he reflected on that meeting with deep admiration. As he explained in 2000, some stars get smaller when you meet them in person. Ingrid was exactly as substantial in life as she was on screen. To him, there was nothing artificial about her presence. She didn't hide behind heavy makeup or perfect camera angles. What you saw was simply who she was. What truly fascinated Eastwood was how comfortable Bergman seemed with the natural process of aging, something he believed many actors struggled to accept. As he once observed, most actresses of that era were terrified of aging. Bergman, however, seemed to embrace it without hesitation. Each line on her face told a story, and every passing year added character rather than taking anything away. Eastwood believed that kind of honesty carried its own powerful beauty. To him, it showed courage in a world that often tried to hide reality behind polished images. Bergman's career even survived a massive public controversy when she left her husband and daughter to be with Italian director Robert Rossellini.
a moment that shocked Hollywood at the time and nearly derailed her career completely.
Her philosophy about beauty closely matched Eastwood's own belief in authenticity. During an era when many actresses relied on heavy makeup and carefully staged publicity photos, Bergman took a very different path. She often allowed herself to be photographed in natural light without layers of cosmetic polish. As Eastwood once explained, she trusted her face to tell the story on its own. When people asked why Bergman's beauty seemed to endure across generations of film audiences, his answer was simple. She wasn't afraid to reveal herself completely, both as an actress and as a person. As Clint Eastwood once explained, most movie stars present the world with a carefully crafted version of themselves. The image is polished, controlled, and designed to look flawless, but Ingrid Bergman was completely different. In his words, she gave audiences everything she had: the joy, the struggle, the strength, and even the moments of weakness. That level of honesty, Eastwood believed, created a beauty far deeper than surface glamour. As he put it, most movie stars show you a carefully constructed version of themselves. But Bergman didn't hide behind that mask. She allowed the full truth of her emotions to appear on screen, and that openness made her unforgettable. Eastwood believed there was something profoundly beautiful about that kind of honesty. While Bergman represented authenticity and artistic integrity, the next woman on Eastwood's list came from a much more personal chapter of his life. This wasn't simply an actress he admired from afar. She was someone deeply connected to his own story, both professionally and emotionally. Number 2 was Sandra Locke. Their relationship became one of the most talked about partnerships in Hollywood during his time. Eastwood cast her in 6 films, and the two shared a personal relationship that lasted more than a decade. Their connection was complicated, intense, and impossible to ignore. Yet through everything that happened between them, Eastwood admitted there was always something about it that stayed with him. As he once reflected, "I never got over how she looked at me when the cameras weren't rolling." To him, Locke carried a presence that went beyond appearance. Her beauty didn't just exist on screen. It lingered in quieter moments, the kind that stayed in memory long after the lights faded. Some forms of beauty remained distant, admired only through films or brief meetings, but Sandra Locke's presence became tightly woven into Eastwood's life itself. Their story blended personal emotions with creative collaboration, making it one of the most complex chapters of his career. Born in Tennessee in 1944, Locke first gained major attention with her Academy Award-nominated performance in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter in 1968. Years later, she met Eastwood during the filming of The Outlaw Jose Wales in 1975, and that meeting sparked a partnership that would stretch across 6 films and nearly 14 years. Even then, Eastwood believed the camera could never fully capture what made her presence so powerful. Years after their relationship ended, Clint Eastwood still spoke about Sandra Locke with a certain intensity. What stayed with him most wasn't just her appearance, but the emotion behind it. He once described the feeling as a wounded intensity that lived in her eyes, something that made people keep watching even when they couldn't quite explain why. According to Eastwood, that quality made her stand apart from the polished image many Hollywood stars tried to maintain. When they first worked together, he realized her beauty came from a completely different place. It wasn't about perfect presentation or glamorous styling. It was something raw and deeply human. As he once explained, Sandra didn't try to be beautiful in the conventional sense. Instead, her presence came from a willingness to reveal real emotion, even when it felt uncomfortable or deeply personal. That honesty, Eastwood believed, created a kind of beauty the camera rarely captured with typical studio stars. During their years together, Eastwood cast Locke in several films, including The Gauntlet, Every Which Way But Loose, Bronco Billy, Any Which Way You Can, and Sudden Impact. Their on-screen chemistry quickly became obvious to audiences. Locke often played strong characters who carried hidden vulnerability beneath their toughness, which only made the performances more compelling. Looking back years later, Eastwood admitted that working with someone you're personally connected to changes the entire dynamic of a film. As he reflected, working with someone you're involved with personally changes everything. According to him, the camera begins to capture subtle emotions that can't be created through acting alone. He explained it by saying, "The camera captures currents that exist between you that no acting could create." When he watched their films again later in life, he believed viewers could feel that authenticity. Something genuine was happening between the characters because something genuine was happening off-screen. Their relationship eventually ended in 1989, and the breakup led to very public legal disputes that exposed the complicated and painful side of their years together. Even so, the creative partnership they shared remained one of the most intense and unforgettable chapters of Eastwood's career.
Even after the lawsuits and the very public fallout that followed their breakup, Clint Eastwood still acknowledged the deep mark Sandra Locke left on his life. Time passed, the headlines faded, but the impact remained. In a rare reflection years later, he summed it up in a simple but powerful way. As he said, certain people mark you. They become part of your formation as a person. And in his own words, for better or worse, Sandra Locke was one of those people for him. What made Locke's beauty so unusual in Eastwood's eyes was how closely it was tied to emotional depth. She wasn't the type of star whose appeal came from a perfect image or effortless glamour. Her face carried layers of feeling that audiences could sense instantly. Eastwood once explained it bluntly when discussing the difference between ordinary beauty and something more powerful. He said, "Hollywood is full of beautiful faces that don't tell you anything, but Locke's face was the opposite of that." As he put it, Sandra's face told you everything, too much sometimes. That raw openness gave her a presence that stayed with people long after the film ended. Despite their complicated past, Eastwood still placed Locke on his list of Hollywood's most beautiful women. For him, that decision had nothing to do with nostalgia. It reflected the emotional impact she had made, both on screen and in his personal life. He even described beauty itself in a way that revealed why Locke fit into that list. As he once said, beauty isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it can be intense, unsettling, even challenging. But those are often the kinds of beauty that stay with you the longest. While Locke represented a form of beauty deeply connected to personal history, Eastwood's final choice stood on a completely different level. This was a woman whose presence moved beyond personal connections and became a global symbol of glamour. Number 1 on Eastwood's list was Marilyn Monroe. To Eastwood, Monroe represented the most powerful and captivating beauty Hollywood had ever produced. He once described her as the most dangerous kind of beautiful, the kind of presence that can make an entire room pause and forget everything else happening around it. Even though they never appeared together in a film, Eastwood often spoke about the effect she had on people, the way she moved, the glow she carried, the way every man in the room suddenly seemed to fade into the background whenever she appeared. Marilyn Monroe represented the very image of temptation, and Eastwood never tried to hide that fact. In his view, some forms of beauty belong to a specific moment in history, but Monroe's presence somehow moved far beyond any single era. Her influence continued long after the spotlight of her time had faded. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, Monroe's journey to global fame was nothing short of remarkable. She transformed herself from a childhood filled with hardship and factory work into one of the most recognized faces of the 20th century. That transformation became the blueprint for modern celebrity culture, showing how a powerful image could reshape an entire career. Yet Eastwood often said the real fascination with Monroe wasn't just the carefully built public image. What held people's attention was the vulnerability that seemed to exist beneath it. As he reflected years later in 1978, there was something deeply emotional about watching her on screen. He described the feeling by saying there was something almost painful about watching her. According to him, it felt as if every emotion was visible at once, as if nothing about her presence was hidden. Eastwood was still a young contract player at Universal Studios when he first encountered Monroe in person during the late 1950s. The meeting happened at the studio commissary and lasted only a brief moment, yet the memory stayed with him for decades. Later, he described the moment with vivid detail. As he said, "She had this quality I've never seen before or since." To Eastwood, Monroe carried a kind of natural glow that felt almost unreal. It was as if the room itself changed when she walked in. He explained it simply by saying she seemed to radiate from within. Not just attractive, but truly luminous, the kind of presence that made everything else nearby seem less important. What impressed him most wasn't a famous figure or the iconic platinum hair people always talked about. Instead, it was something far harder to define, a powerful charisma that could only be understood by being in the same room with it. Clint Eastwood once explained that being around Marilyn Monroe created a feeling you couldn't easily describe. It wasn't just fame or public attention. According to him, there was something else in the air when she entered the room. As he put it, with Marilyn, you felt this current in the air, this electric charge that had nothing to do with fame and everything to do with some essential quality she possessed. While Monroe's beauty made her one of the most recognizable women in the world, Eastwood believed her real importance came from her talent. He often pointed to several of her performances as proof that she had far more depth than many critics initially realized.
Films like The Misfits, Bus Stop, and Some Like It Hot showed a level of emotional range that people didn't always expect from someone labeled only as a glamorous symbol. Eastwood felt strongly that many observers underestimated her abilities during her lifetime. As he once explained, the tragedy was that no one took her seriously as an actress until it was too late. According to him, Monroe possessed a remarkable acting instrument. It wasn't only her appearance that drew attention. She had the rare ability to project vulnerability and humor at the same time, something very few performers could achieve naturally. Her passing in 1962 at the age of 36 only deepened the mystery surrounding her legacy. For Eastwood, it wasn't just a personal loss for those who admired her work, it was a major cultural loss for the film world itself.
He often wondered what might have happened if Monroe had been given more time to grow as an actress. As he reflected later, some talents need time to fully reveal themselves. He believed that in her 40s and 50s, once the pressure to constantly represent the image of Marilyn Monroe had faded, audiences might have witnessed an entirely new chapter of powerful performances. Clint Eastwood believed the reason Marilyn Monroe stood apart from the many beautiful women of her era came down to the powerful contradiction she carried within her. She seemed to embody opposite qualities all at once. At the same time, she appeared innocent and sensual, strong yet vulnerable, carefully constructed yet somehow completely authentic. According to Eastwood, that unusual balance is what made her unforgettable. As he once explained, most sex symbols were one-dimensional. They fit neatly into a single image that audiences expected. But Monroe was far more complex than that simple label. As he put it, Marilyn contained multitudes. That depth is exactly why her image still lives on while so many others slowly faded from memory. When people asked Eastwood why he considered Monroe the most beautiful woman in Hollywood history, even after working alongside so many extraordinary actresses, his answer went far beyond physical appearance. For him, true beauty created something emotional inside the person watching. As he explained, the greatest beauty creates a kind of yearning. It wasn't only about attraction, it was about recognizing something rare and fleeting at the same time. Monroe carried that feeling in abundance, and her presence made people aware of how delicate and temporary beauty could be. Decades after she left the world, Eastwood still kept one of the most famous photographs of Monroe in his office at Maupassant Productions. It was the well-known Tom Kelly image that helped launch her career and became one of the most recognizable pictures in Hollywood history. He once said the photograph reminded him of an important truth about the film industry. Behind every legendary image stands a real person with a complicated life and real emotions. For Eastwood, Monroe's beauty was never just about perfect features. It was about what showed through them, the humanity, the humor, and the quiet sadness that audiences could feel even when she said nothing at all. That emotional depth is what made her truly unforgettable.